When did treating you like a child come back to bite someone in the ass? I'm 54, and my 2 adult children still shield me from anything remotely disturbing like I'm made of tissue paper. My daughter literally lunged across the room last week to change the channel when a medical drama came on because she thought the fake blood would upset me. Growing up in a sheltered suburban home where I spent 20 years raising them apparently means I never developed past being their delicate mother who cried at Disney movies. My son still warns me before telling me about his minor workplace conflicts because he's worried I'll lose sleep over them. My daughter covers my eyes during movie previews if there's even a hint of violence. They treat me like I need protection from hearing about current events, and literally said at Thanksgiving that we shouldn't discuss the news because it might give me nightmares. My brother's retirement party last month at the country club was where everything reached peak absurdity. The entire extended family had gathered along with his colleagues and neighbors, and basically everyone he'd ever met. During cocktails, my daughter physically steered me away from a conversation where people were discussing a recent car accident on the highway. "Let's go look at the dessert table instead, honey," she said loudly, while guiding me by the shoulders like I was a confused elderly person who'd wandered into traffic. When my brother's colleague mentioned working at the regional medical center during dinner, my son immediately jumped in before I could respond to his question about whether I knew the hospital. "Mom doesn't really like talking about medical stuff," he announced to the entire table while patting my hand protectively. The man looked confused but shrugged and turned to someone else. Later, when people were mingling, my daughter saw me talking to a group near the bar and rushed over when she heard them discussing a documentary about emergency medicine. "Mom gets squeamish," she announced to complete strangers while physically turning my body away from them. She volunteered at the church nursery for years, so she's more comfortable with happy things like babies and finger painting. The group exchanged awkward glances while I stood there like a toddler being redirected from something inappropriate. When my daughter spotted the waiter approaching with rare steaks for the table next to us, she actually threw her napkin over my eyes while my son asked the waiter to take a different route because his mother couldn't handle seeing red meat. "We bought her some crackers and cheese in case the adult menu was too much," my daughter explained to our confused table mates while sliding a plate of goldfish crackers in front of me that she'd apparently been carrying in her purse for emergencies. That's when the hospital administrator from across the room stood up looking completely bewildered. "Excuse me, but are you Dr. Carol?" he asked while staring directly at me over my daughter's attempts at blocking my face. My daughter laughed nervously, and my children exchanged confused glances. "This is just our sweet mommy dearest," she explained in a condescending tone. "She spent her life raising her babies and taking care of her garden. You must have her confused with someone else." The administrator's expression shifted from bewildered to absolutely stunned. "Ma'am, this is the head of trauma surgery at one of the best hospitals in the state. She performed a 15-hour operation on 17 victims of that massive 12-car pileup last Tuesday." The country club fell completely silent except for the sound of a fork hitting a plate somewhere. My daughter's hand slowly slid off my ears. "She operated for 15 hours straight," the administrator continued louder now so everyone could hear. "Lost count of how many lives she saved that night. The governor called personally to thank her." My son's mouth was hanging open while still frozen in his protective stance. "But she just," his voice trailed off. "54, I said calmly while straightening my dress. "Started medical school at 38 after you kids left for college. Completed my residency at 46. Been running the trauma department for 4 years now." The administrator walked closer through the silent crowd. "Last month, she literally held a man's beating heart in her hand for 20 minutes while repairing a bullet wound that 4 other surgeons said was impossible to fix. The patient brought his whole family to the hospital yesterday just to meet the woman who grabbed death by the throat and told it no." My daughter had gone completely pale and sank into her chair while my son dropped his cocktail glass. "She's seen more blood in one shift than most people see in 10 lifetimes," the administrator added. "The paramedics call her the miracle worker." 3 weeks ago, she reattached a construction worker's arm that had been completely severed for over an hour, using techniques she invented on the spot. Last night, she came in on her day off covered in mud because she'd stopped at a highway accident and performed emergency surgery right there on the asphalt with a Swiss Army knife while waiting for the ambulance. My daughter was staring at her hands like they were contaminated from trying to cover my ears. "The other surgeons say she operates like she's in a trance," he continued, completely calm while everyone else is panicking. "Blood up to her elbows and she just keeps working like she's arranging flowers." I picked up my wine glass from where my family had moved it away from me earlier, in case I knocked it over in my delicate state, and took a long sip while everyone stared. The goldfish crackers sat abandoned on the white tablecloth like evidence at a crime scene.